Leaders, man, and you go and model and you learn from them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's what it's all about. And it takes a certain mindset as well to look out there at what's been done. And then, especially before opening up your own gym, a mentor and friend of ours named Troy Skidmore, he's the owner of Limitless Mixed Martial Arts. And he's done a great job in building that gym. Josh and I have traveled with him, and we've heard a little bit about what he wanted Limitless to end up as. And it's cool to see that it has kind of taken shape in the way that he calls it. But something that stood out to me when I was chatting to him early on, he told me that when he was ready to open his own gym, the first thing he did was just go out to all the different gyms and setups that he liked. And he would just pick the brains of the people who set him up and try to get an understanding of what challenges lay ahead, what was in it for them, what things they found worked well. And look at what he's done with his. So it's awesome seeing yours. So I think looks like we've just jumped on and started recording. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what's your name and what you do.
Yeah, cool. So my name's Reece Schleicher. I'm the founder and I guess managing director of Uplift Training and Performance in Richmond. We're a strength-based group training facility that I guess our focus is to bridge the gap between personal and group training by giving you almost an individual coaching experience, but training you almost in that one-on-one setting in that group environment. So you've got that community and you're able to develop a skill set, be around people, but all for, more of an affordable cost.
Awesome. How long have you had that for now?
Mate, we've only been open 3 weeks. We opened like a week before the first lockdown, which was pretty stressful. And then after the first lockdown, I think we got like 2.5 weeks out before getting completely shut down, man. So it's been a crazy journey the last couple of months, but to be completely honest, I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
anything worth having, it doesn't come easy.
True.
Absolutely.
And if you can endure through this in your first year of business, especially, man, like what can't you endure after this,
100%. Completely agree with you.
That's cool. I actually checked it out, and it seems that, like you were saying before, you trained with Jacko and the boys down in Power, and I was looking at it and I was like, man, I looked at your setup and the same sort of really aesthetically pleasing and really tight-knit community vibe. Like we also spoke with, who we spoke to the other week?
With Liquor?
Yeah, that's right, Liquor. So Liquor's got a very similar vibe. He trains down in Power as well.
Yeah.
And those sort of gyms, they remind me of, I'm sure, do you know Andrew Papp?
Yeah, I do. Is it 365 Fitness
Yeah,
or something like that?
Yeah. So that sort of vibe, and like Seymour Benny, the boys up in Newcastle and that. And I was like, man, I love this vibe, because I didn't know that anyone else sort of had that sort of setup in Victoria. Like obviously I knew about Empower, but I was like, who else has it? Because it can't be just one, surely. And then I seen Uplift Training. I was like, this is exactly the sort of gyms I like seeing come up. These are the ones that I actually want to be a part of,
Yeah, I think it's, it's because it's not too commercial, and we're held to keep things to our standard. And that's one thing I saw that Empower did really well. And I wanted to stay true and loyal to myself. Make sure that we don't go too commercial and we can keep that cool, aesthetic, young, vibrant sort of community and culture there, man, and keep it just looking sick.
Yeah,
that's it.
That's exactly what it is. And like we said before as well, the same with Troy, like our coach, he said the exact same thing. He said that, so do you know much about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
No, man, I love UFC, but I have no idea.
Yeah. All right, perfect. Well, this would be a little quick history lesson. So Jiu-Jitsu is founded off the Gracie family, and they have they've got a cousin family called the Machados. And the Machados is 5 brothers, and they sort of, together with the Gracies, they made it what it is today, really. And we went over to LA, and one of the brothers there, Jean-Jacques Machado, he's the coach of Eddie Bravo, Joe Rogan. So he's pretty well known, but he's got 2 gyms only. One in Malibu, which is tiny, and it's just very tight knit. It's right on the back of this little surf beach. He just trains and goes surfing. And then he's got a bit of a commercial one, which is sort of everyone goes down there. But that small one, we got invited to go there, and it was perfect. You looked at it and you're like, it's sort of tucked away in the forest a little bit. And it's just got this one little acai store, just a little beach. And it was just nothing very fancy, but he's one of the best ever to ever do it. And he's got this tiny little gym. And I remember we were lucky enough to go down there and train. And our coach had said the same thing. He's like, this is all I want. I just want this. I just want a small gym. I want good quality athletes and nothing more. I don't want to push any sort of boundaries. It's all I need. I was like, that's the right mindset.
That's so good, man. I love it.
Because that's how you're going to build. And I'm sure you got the same sort of mindset, but you want that quality over quantity. There's no point having 1,000 members come through and you're not really making an impact. I mean, that's sort of why I started in the first place.
100%. I fully agree with that. I think it's important to stay true to yourself and I guess almost not sell out. I don't think it's wrong to want to make money, but you've got to be authentic, man. And people see through that. So, stick to what you're good at, stay within your boundaries, stay true to yourself, and you're going to create a great culture anyway, and you don't have to be making, big money. You can make good money off 2 gyms if you do the fundamentals right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Leading up to having this gym, what was your kind of lifestyle like? What were you involved in with work, and how'd you get to where you're at?
Well, look, I was being a personal trainer for, I think I've been in the industry almost 9 years now.
Okay.
Started at a little gym in Yarraville called Focus Fitness, just working the gym floor, receptionist sort of duties. Moved on to be a PT, out of like a Good Life and Fitness First sort of franchise. Did really well in that sort of sense, managed to sort of start competing. So at the time I was influenced by a lot of bodybuilders. So I got into that physique sort of competition. I competed overseas, I won my pro card. So fitness was always sort of in my life. And then what sort of happened was, I think I was working at Good Life Docklands. I think I was there for about 4 years, had a really successful business, but I sort of had the same clients for like 3 years straight, hit sort of my own, I guess what's the word, like the cap on my growth. Yeah, like I plateaued in my development. Like money was good, but I just felt like I wasn't getting any better. And then there were certain circumstances in my life sort of changed, and it led me to have the opportunity to go work at another group training franchise, where I was actually lucky enough to help open one from the ground up in the city on Exhibition Street. We did relatively well there, and I then had the opportunity to open another one by myself as sort of the studio manager, head trainer role in Hawthorne. So I always knew that I wanted to open a gym. I didn't know it was going to be group training. I was, because I was a PT, I was so used to like this one-on-one concept. And I didn't think that, you could bridge it. Now, when I moved on to open these other group training spaces, one, I fell in love with the culture. And then I just got surrounded by heaps of business owners, and I was doing really, really well. Ended up going to, starting to teach a lot of these franchises actually how to sell. And then it just clicked. I go like, why would I get someone else rich when I can go out and do it myself, do it my way, stay true to what I believe in? The concept that these guys had was really good. I've got nothing bad to say, but at the same time, it just wasn't me. But it was enough experience for me to realize that I was actually good enough. I can go do it on my own terms and have a completely different impact. And this sort of allowed me to get enough experience, I guess, sort of understand the market, speak to the members and find out what they really wanted. And then that's where I came up with, I guess, like, I want to be able to bridge the gap between personal and group training. And that's what set me up to open Uplift. And as you said about, your mentor, in that process, I went up, I actually spoke to almost every other franchise. I spoke to other owners. I checked out, obviously, Empower. I think there was Body Lab. There was a BFit that I checked out as well. Body Fit, F45. And I think every single one of these, franchise, these brands, they all have some really good, qualities, training techniques. And what I did was I just took the best from every area, implemented into the stuff that I knew, to then put it out to our members to have the ultimate experience.
That's awesome. That's classic. That there's that line that Bruce Lee says, take what's useful and discard what isn't, and add what is entirely your own. And that is such a classic quote, but it's perfect. It really sums it up, not just in martial arts, but in everything. especially from business, from that perspective, you can see that. I just jotted a few things down because you mentioned a few things about, you know, how you got to where you got to.
Yeah.
So with, you know, physique, was that men's physique you were competing in and one on bodybuilding? So what are some of the difficulties in training for something like that? You know, people hear about that and they assume it is what it is, you know, training hard and in the gym many hours, but what's something unique? What's a unique type of challenge that you think is unique to that pursuit?
I think it's making sure you've got the right environment that's going to set you up for success. So like to do well at that, you need to be, I guess, around people that live and breathe that lifestyle, because it goes so against the grain, the dieting, you know, missing family events, the cardio, all those sort of things. So like, if I was to say like be a bodybuilder now in the group training space, it just doesn't align and people can never comprehend it. So you're always going to have this friction and your likelihood to sort of fail. So I think like the difficult thing is like you need to find a circle of friends that are all doing the same thing. Like your family just don't understand it. Your friends that don't understand it. I think that's the unique thing, man. Like you've got to have the right space, right people around you.
It's funny, like in my own journey in martial arts, what I found and also through business is that when you really give yourself to something, you know, and you decide this is what I'm pursuing, eventually that circle kind of builds itself around you, or it has to really. If not, I guess we don't actually go as far as we intend or as far as we want. But the circle kind of builds around you. The way you put it was exactly how it is. It's like your support network is, I guess, your family, maybe your missus, your boyfriend, whoever it is you have in your life, some close friends. But there's a big difference between that, and that is extremely important, and then having the players in the game that you're involved in around you. And I look around now at the people I'm friends with, and I'm like, hey, they're all involved in, you know, whatever I'm involved in, you know. They're all either trying to create an amazing, unique life for themselves, build businesses, become world champions. They're all training with a purpose, and it makes a big difference. When your circle is in line with your pursuit, things fall in place. And it's another 100%. One of those things that needs to fall in place, but things do fall in place. So now it's good that you brought it up as a challenge as well, because I can see how you could be in a pursuit of something but not have that right circle around you, and how it could definitely hold you back a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah. I find as well, like a lot of people don't understand the importance of creating this environment and support network when you're related to any sort of your goals. So that's why I call it a challenge, because if everybody aligned themselves with the right space, the right environment, everybody would be achieving more, if that sort of makes sense. That's why I say it's a challenge, because especially when I started, I didn't know that. Like you said, it sort of I just fell into it. Like I fell into a space of people that were in that space, and it was only natural for me to do what they were sort of doing.
Yeah.
But as I said, like it becomes challenging as well, because as you said, to be successful, you've got to know who to cut out as well. Like you've got to know who you've got to knock back, because, you know, people don't realize it. And even though it might be sometimes family or friends, like they definitely love you. But if they don't have that mindset, they don't understand, they don't realize that they could be potentially holding them back with just certain language or, you know, some of their actions, even though what they're probably doing is from a place of love. So like I said, creating that environment and being able to hold on to it is a challenge in especially bodybuilding, because it goes, you know, it's so frowned upon almost for most. I guess it's coming more to light now that, you know, it's a little bit more normal. But if you look at your circles, you know, a lot of people almost sort of look down because people are so in vain with that, which I sort of understand.
No, I get you, bro.
That's true. So in saying that, I did see that post that you put up about surrounding yourself with the 5 people, you know, you're going to be the average. And I found it really interesting that you didn't just say people, because your environment does include everything. It includes the books that you're reading, the food that you're eating, you know, like where you're spending your time. And I was like, yeah, you know what? That is so true, isn't it? It's not just that one, like your environment is every single little thing that you're constantly involved with. So how would you think that, so let's say that someone's sort of from scratch and they've got some sort of idea that they want to pursue. what do you think the first few steps are to start getting the best environment for yourself?
I think it's looking at everything from the ground up. Like it might be your living arrangements. It might be, you know, where you do your study. It might be the sort of books you read. It might be the people that you talk to. Like, obviously, you know, I've made many mistakes, but I've now sort of seen like there's sort of science to it. Yeah. Like it's as simple as like the law of averages. And if you can look at like from that perspective and go, you are going to be the average of everything that you do, this will be, you know, the outcome. So like, and here's an example, right? I've got a younger brother. He's 19 years old, bit of a troublemaker, sort of growing up, never loved study, you know, but very academic, like highly intelligent, but he never had the space to actually like blossom in that. You know, he was always doing his homework, you know, or trying to do parts of his homework, you know, in front of a TV or a messy kitchen or whatever. Now, at my place, like we had a whole reshuffle and we actually like created an office, a space that we love to walk in and where we could feel creative. And I noticed like this is the first time that he's been able to sit down and knuckle down to actually get his study. He's doing his Cert 3 and 4. He wants to be a part of my business, a part of our vision. But because for the first time in his life, he's in a space where there's no clutter, there's no mess, there's a spot to be creative. There's a spot for silence and peace that he can actually put his skills to good use. And I always like relate that to obviously like, you know, fitness or weight loss, man. Like if all your mates are partying and on benders, fuck, of course you're going to go. It's fun. But if you put yourself in an environment where people are already on the same journey, you know, where, you know, they're training and exercises, you're going to be that. And it goes the same as at home. Like if you come from a background of people that potentially have terrible eating habits, they're not organized, or your partner's not supportive, you know, you may love each other, but they're not on the health kick and you are. Your chances are slim, man. Like there's friction. Like you're literally butting heads, like hoping that something magical is going to happen. So I always go back, like you need to be responsible because no one's going to change anything for you. Like things don't just fucking land in your lap. Like you have to be that move. You need to also assess what's going on and set yourself up for the best chance of success by creating an environment or putting yourself in an environment or learning from people that are already in a position that you want that's going to, you know, dictate the direction you go on. And as I said, like just be the average, like of everything you do and you'll get there.
From what I'm hearing, it's a lot about, you know, making it easy for yourself. Make it easy for yourself to do what you got to do. And that Absolutely. Is part of looking at your environment and saying, for example, like you said with your younger brother, with studying, that's something I've noticed about myself. Like I have certain places to do certain things. When I did my Zoom classes for PTs, it's like I could easily do it in my backyard and I did at the start or do it here, but I found I liked going to the gym to have a space to do it in, you know, make it easy for yourself. And that's just one small example. Absolutely. Another thing you mentioned was hitting a bit of a plateau. So, and feeling a little bit like you had reached a certain peak. And that's something that I think a lot of people will experience, sometimes subconsciously, and they may not be aware of it. For myself, you know, I've felt that many times in skill development in martial arts, like bang, 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 good, especially because you can test yourself with the group that you have. And then it's like, all right, this for the past 2 weeks, this has been at this same level. And you can feel like that, not just in training, but also in other parts in life. And I know what I personally like to do to get past those plateaus. But first, I want to just ask yourself, what were the things that you felt you did or just that occurred that helped you to get past that plateau or get past that little peak?
I think number one was I needed to set new goals. Mm-hmm. So I think I achieved a lot of the things that I set out. Number two, I had to put myself in like a real vulnerable spot and just feel almost like put myself in a spot where I was no longer either the best in what I was doing or I was no longer at that goal that I already achieved. So yeah, when I sort of hit that plateau, it's because I sort of achieved everything that I set out for. Everything that I was doing felt easy and there wasn't a challenge. And to sort of break it, I had to like realize that, okay, I need new goals. I need something to work towards. I'm very goal orientated. And I think it's taken me a while to realize that like, you know, on a subconscious level, I'm like, why am I just fucking so driven? But like somewhere along the lines, like I'm setting these big challenges, you know, ahead for me to sort of chase, you know what I mean? So yeah, to go back at setting new goals, but then putting myself in a position of being vulnerable and realizing I'm no longer the best and I'm a student again.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's like exactly some of the things you mentioned are things that I share in doing those, whether traits or doing the same things. For example, just making sure you're in an environment where you're challenged. You know, if you want to grow, you have to be challenged. But I've also realized that an ideal environment is one where you're challenged, but there's also a certain level of comfort there.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, I think it's common that I've seen as well that comfort and being out of your comfort zone is where you'll find the growth. And that's of course true. We know that, and we seek that discomfort out for that reason once we know that. But having a good balance of comfort and extremely challenging scenarios also produces a lot of great results.
100%.
Yeah, easy.
I agree.
What
I like
about yourself?
that. Well, actually, I did see, this is something a little bit different, but I did see that your partner, is it Charles or Chelsea?
Chelsea, correct. Yeah.
Chelsea. I did see just quickly, I just had a look just before we jumped on, and she said something that sort of resonated. And she said, pre-planning a time and place will increase your completion rate of that task by 60%. And I was like, you know what? That's exactly right. Because I remember when we had a world Muay Thai champion, Callie Reece, and she said exactly that. So she's a 10-time world champion, very, very goal orientated, very driven. And she said that even now, because she's very heavy into CrossFit, she said that anytime I get any sort of goal, like I know where it's going to be, I know when I'm doing it, and she writes it all down exactly the way it's going to be done, even if she knows it in her head, but she'll write it down. And every time she comes, like she finishes this, bang, crossed off, and she gets that real sense of satisfaction. But I'm really interested in that statistic. Where did you get that one from?
Mate, I would have no clue. My partner is very, very intelligent, and she's always learning and reading and keeping things to herself. So every so often she'll just pop up with this new idea or this new strategy that we implement straight away. So she's very goal orientated, very organized. If anything, she's probably, you know, the glue to the business and all those sort of things. Another
interesting thing that I've always seen, especially I've seen this, for example, in my gym at Absolute MMA, is the synchronized relationship between the two people involved in a very successful business. Now, for example, we have head honcho Simon Carson, you know, nonstop, you know, much like ourselves, just a lot of energy, and you can tell he knows what he's doing. He's been in business game as well as the coaching game for quite some time. And then you've got also Dan Herbertson, who is kind of in the back end of running Absolute MMA, which is a pretty big gym with 3 big locations. Yep. And they're so very different personality wise, but they also have many similarities. So, and they balance each other out like that. So what about yourself, you know, working with your missus? How do you see that kind of seesaw? Like, in which areas do you balance each other out? What kind of insights do you have on that?
Yeah, cool. I think like it goes like to the same thing in terms of environment. I think you've both got to have one sort of the same goal that you're sort of working towards. You've got to have a growth mindset, and you've almost got to have certain opposite personalities. Like I know I've had previous relationships that didn't work because it was almost like we were both, I want to use the word alpha, like we both wanted to sort of drive the direction. And that's where we clashed from both sides. There was probably both a bit of jealousy when I saw her succeed, or vice versa. I think as I've got older though, like you realize to develop each other. So like there might be things or skill sets that sort of I almost need to sort of, how to put it, like coach her to be better at, but in a nurturing way. But the same goes from her. Like there's things that I'm very terrible, and I've got to know, okay, well, I'm not actually an expert in this, or I'm not very good at it. She's coming from a loving place, so she can develop me to know the right thing. So I think you're right. Like we're completely opposites, but then we're so very the same. And it's just knowing when to stand up and when to sit down that keeps us being so strong.
That's awesome. I'm happy to hear that. But you put it down pretty well. I think I've started to see a lot of the similarities, and especially the longer in this game of life that we're in, this journey that we're in, and constantly looking at others and just trying to observe and pick things up and see what kind of similarities people share. And that's another one that I've realized, like anytime that there's that strong relationship in any sort of thing, whether it's a normal, regular relationship or a business relationship or a mix of both, there's always a balancing out, but it's always tied behind a very strong, similar goal and purpose. And that's the
100%.
driving force. That's the big driving force. Last little note I wrote down here, which is something I actually chatted about with the last bloke we have on the podcast, Liquor, who's very switched on, great business person, and also trains out of Empower, and he's good friends with the boys there. He was talking about him setting up his business, Nutrition Capital, that he's a partner in.
Yep.
And how they look to differentiate. And when you were talking about Uplift and how you came to the conclusion of running Uplift, and a book that I've read actually, which you might find interesting, is called Blue Ocean Strategy. And I've mentioned it to Josh. I've mentioned it a few times. It's a little bit, for me anyway, it was a little bit tricky to get through the first half of it. It just was a bit dense and a lot of terminology I wasn't familiar with, but I went through it once or twice because it was so valuable in doing exactly that. And the essence of the book is looking at different businesses across the board in a certain niche, in a certain industry, and then drawing parallels between those businesses and looking at what factors, and this is a complete business-based book, so it's just completely on business, and looking at what factors do these main actors that I've identified share in this industry, okay? And he plots those factors out on the bottom axes. And for example, some of them in the gym industry would be like the price point, whether it's personal training or group training, and community is one that I'm starting to see emerge more and more. That has always been talked about, but I'm starting to see it actually embodied. So there are all these different factors, also aesthetics, the vibe. And then it uses that on one side of things and then just a high-low on the other side of things, where you would plot out where you would want to stand in each of those factors. And sometimes it might be a factor you don't even want to compete with. It might not even be something important to your vision, and you can say, well, I'm eliminating that factor. And then what they do, what they use this chart for in this book is to either eliminate the factors, create new factors, raise or lower. And that's all that you do. So you can see that in the way you've run your business, that and the way that you've brought it together is you've identified the certain characteristics that you find valuable, and not just from a business sense, that you personally find valuable, and then decided to run with those. What other things have you seen in gyms that you feel you would eliminate? It might be a big question, but what things do you see overall in the gym industry that what factors would you completely eliminate? What factors would you create new?
It's sort of a tough one, because I guess when you look at business to layers, like there's a niche for everything. So like, to put it in perspective, like I guess my gym wouldn't be best for a beginner, right? And like, for example, I'm going to drop the name, like an F45. Like if you're first into the industry and you're to come to Uplift, it might be a little bit too intense, or you're not quite at the standard. Or like if you're at a higher end of your training, you going to like an F45 or wouldn't work. So to say, like, I think like places like F45s in these beginner places, they have a place. Some people aren't ready for that one-on-one sort of approach. Some people just need to be active. Some people love the high intensity stuff. Other people don't like to take their time and lift heavy. So when I look at it from a perspective, what would I take away and what would I add? Like it's too hard of a question to answer, because as I said, in business, everything has a place. Hence why, most places, so long as, they get certain aspects right, are going to be successful regardless. I think what I do learn a lot from business, as I'm going through a lot now, is marketing's a huge point. Like I can see, and I know of probably in other states currently, there's a lot of fresh gyms that come up. They probably don't have the the best education is probably the word. They don't have enough experience, but these gyms are highly successful. Number one, their marketing was great and they targeted the right niche. They listened to the people and what they wanted. They targeted that people directly and they got it. Does that answer your question without?
Yeah, it does. It really does. And I guess it's a bit of a trick question, I guess, because you've answered it in the business that you've built. You know, the factors that you would eliminate, what you would keep, what you would raise and lower, that's all embodied through Uplift. But that's good perspective. That's good perspective on that.
Yeah. And like I said, you've got business has got to be based on what your audience want. You know, like, I guess it's probably the same with, you know, podcasting and content. You know what I mean? There's probably stuff that you want to add and stuff that you don't, but directly, like, you connected with me because you spoke to me. You know what I mean? Does that make sort of sense? Like, just because, like, sometimes, like, this is what I learned as well in business. Because I don't like something doesn't mean Chelsea doesn't like it. You know what I mean? She might be like, no, but fucking based on, you know, my morals and my experience and my understanding, like, I love that. Does that make sense? So I can't, like, I learned to realize, like, there's no right or wrong. Everything's, you know, subjective.
There's a place for everything, like you said. There's a place
absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. I'm actually really interested in your mindset more than everything. Like, obviously you've got a successful gym, which is great, and you're going through one of the toughest years, and it looks like you're going to come out on the other end relatively unscathed, you know. Yeah. But I'm really interested in the way that you're handling the COVID, because it's like, this is exactly what we want to see. And we said this on the very first lockdown and the very first mindset. And if anyone's a Dragon Ball Z fan out there, we said it's going to be like a hyperbolic time chamber where you basically just get those increased results. And I really like the way that you were handling it, because it's like, you can't play the victim. You have to do these things and you have to excel, even though this is happening. You know what I mean? You can't choose that it's going to be affected or not, but you can choose what you do and how well you're going to get some results, even though it's happening. You know what I mean? And I'm really thinking, like, how is it that you've gone about this? Do you know what I mean? Like, what's your mindset and your motto going through this? Yeah,
of course. Well, look, not to lie to you, the first lockdown, I actually did play a bit of a victim. I was a bit like, fuck, man, like, I've opened a week, I've spent a ton of money, you know, I put blood, sweat and tears into this, you know. I did feel sorry for myself. I did stop training a little bit. I did start eating shit. And I think I had to go through that stage. I think I had to realize, like, it's okay to be human. I like to front like I got a bulletproof mindset, and I feel like a lot of the times I'm extremely strong, but there's times that, you know, there's weakness in the armor, so to say. But I guess once we got through the first week, the first lockdown, we opened again, and we actually had some really good growth. And I think that just rebuilt the confidence again. You know, when you open your first, or when you do anything, you know what I mean, and you get hit, like, you start doubting it, like, fuck, man, like, was it worth risking all of this? And I think that once we opened again, and I saw there was a lot of people that believed in me, and a lot of new people that, you know, I'd met that probably needed someone to sort of be strong. So this lockdown, I woke up to myself again, and I go, fuck, man, like, no one's going to fix this. No one's going to do the work for you. No one's going to be the leader that, you know, you want to be. Like, you have to rise above and sort of become that. So I sort of took on the role that, you know, that I was going to make sure that I did everything possible in my control to make sure on the other end of this, that I was going to keep the business surviving. I was going to allow, you know, my partner, Chelsea, to still have an opportunity, that I was going to have a spot for my members to be able to sort of train, and that I was also going to be a leader to say, like, it's okay to be weak. You know what I mean? It's okay to, you know, feel like you're struggling and you're not putting runs on the board, but there's people out there that are doing really well. And if I can inspire you guys to, you know, train well or get better at your business, you know, that's a win for me. So that was sort of the mindset, just be a leader and take responsibility. You know, my life is what I make it, you know, and if I choose to fold, that's on me, not COVID. You know what I mean?
100%. You also said as well that I was really interested in, because this is the sort of mindset we think about with the Player One podcast, because we try to think about it as if this was a game, like an RPG sort of role-playing game. And if I'm a character in the game, then how am I going to upskill and develop and level up? And you said it in one of your posts, and I was like, yes, this is exactly what I want to see, because you said this is one of the most key things. And, like, you have to always remember that no matter where you are, at what stage, you have to always be able to level up and upskill and develop. And I think that's you're always a beginner. You're always trying to level up. You know what I mean? Like this
100%.
level, so to speak. And you were saying how you took on 3 new mentors.
Yeah.
What were those 3 different mentors? You said 3 different.
So yeah, so one of them was like a business coach, like in the fitness game, that had opened a couple gyms. Himself being extremely successful, similar niche. So I wanted to learn from him and almost model him to the T. You know, I have a value that I live by, and it's called model excellence. So when I find someone that's doing something extremely well, like I'll copy it to the T until I've mastered it, and then I'll add my own touch and fine tune sort of thing. So one of them was business. The next one was a sales coach. So I did some sales coaching. I still do it with some guys, I believe they're in New South Wales. They do high ticket sales. So they actually do everything from fitness to real estate, making some really, really good money. And I was like, fuck, well, I've got plenty of time right now. It's so valuable. Like, why not use it? So I went, paid them. Actually worked for another for another fitness coach for a little bit, just practicing my craft. You know, I was like, oh, cool, I'll get some commission, but I'll learn from these guys. And then the other one was just another fitness coach with Chelsea as well. So we just brought on someone just to oversee what we were doing. It was another way to look at some coaching methods related to training as well. So maybe the way that they did their check-ins, we wanted to see. We also just wanted someone to keep us accountable. What did they do really well? So just three different mentors from 3 different fields doing 3 different things and being extremely good at it. And as I said, I just wanted to copy them and learn from the very best, in my opinion. Yeah.
It's like a big goal of mine, and it is my personal mission, is to realize my full potential and live life as though it's a game and it's player one, and I am player one. And the reason why I set that as the goal is because when we decided to adopt this view of, you know, life as a game and us as a character in that game and as people who understand what player one, the next question we started to ask ourselves was, what goal do we set? Let's say if you suddenly did have the realization that, okay, this is a game. And then what would the point be? What goal would you set to take you far? And then what I realized was setting this goal and that goal and winning this and that. And I realized, wait, I just want to realize my full potential. And part of doing that is exactly what you're doing. It sounds like you're just going out there and just leveling up. And it doesn't mean, a lot of people kind of get the wrong image sometimes when they hear this, and they think that, you know, guys like ourselves who I guess are pretty motivated and pretty ambitious and goal driven, they think it's just super easy, and then it's just always all about how do I get better and whatnot. But there are the challenges there. Things do fall out of place. It's all about constantly continuing to try and get better, constantly leveling up, constantly using your time, reaching out to mentors, and not being, another thing I'm realizing about you, even though this is only our first interaction, is that you're pretty honest and you're pretty upfront, and you don't shy away from being a little bit vulnerable. And that's a massive part of growing, because if you subconsciously hide your flaws or the areas of where you may be weak to yourself, well, then you've massively reduced your chances of getting those problems fixed. They might be fixed. The right person might come in and give you the right word of advice. Anything might happen, but wouldn't you rather take control and go out there and look to solve those? So that just leads on to my next one, which would be, in this game, and in particular in this year, what are 3 things that you found really challenging about, in terms of personally, outside of business, what were 3 personal challenges or insights that this year has brought to the front?
Yeah, good question. I think, I don't know how to answer
Of course,
that.
whatever you're willing to share.
Yeah, of course.
Whatever you went into.
I find it a tough answer, because as much as I come across as extremely successful and driven, like I've had plenty of fuck ups, and I've probably failed more times than I've succeeded, but I've sort of just been relentless with my goals. So to like put it, you know, in a way, like I've had hard times sort of my whole life, if this sort of makes sense. So I actually perform better in these challenging environments because it was sort of the space I was raised in. And I think that's what people sort of don't understand. So when you say it's challenging, like this is, I hate to say it, like I don't want to like play like a sob story or anything, but like, because my life has been so challenging, mate, this is the environment that I perform in. I actually like it, it's sort of weird because my best friend Lockie said it to me. He goes, man, like, I always feel like you sort of need chaos or drama in your life, because when your life is good, like, you take the foot off the pedal, and that's probably when you become self-destructive, and, you know, you probably like to have too much fun and act up a little bit, you know? So to answer that question, like, there has been challenging things, and I think that's just being true to myself. Like, I've had to stay the leader. I haven't had a choice. I wasn't allowed to fail in life. You know, I've got younger brothers, younger siblings. I've got a lot of friends that have sort of supported me, you know, some family that sort of like need me to get this right. So for me, like, I just soldier on every day as it comes. Like, yeah, I have my moments where I crash a bit and I'm a bit flat, but like when like it comes to almost that breaking point, like, I never break. I've just like, fuck, like, let's just get it done, figure out a way, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So just continuing to stay true to myself.
That's it, man. You 100% give that vibe off. I feel, I guess, kind of the same, and I'm sure Josh does as well. It's like another good, fun one that when I was having a little bit of a moment, I remember I was talking, one of my friends actually noticed it. I didn't actually even reach out. He just was like, bro, what's going on? Are you okay? And I just told him what was going on. And he said something that stood out to me, and I really liked that quote. It was, heavy hangs the head that wears the crown. And it kind of sums it up pretty well, because if you're out there and you are ambitious, whether by nature or whether by choice, it's your choice. And heavy hangs the head that wears the crown. It doesn't mean that you're walking around with your head down all the time. It just means that there is a certain burden that you are tested with. And I feel like we're given that if we can bear it. You know, if we can bear it, we're given that. And otherwise, if our life was super easy and if there were no difficulties in upbringing or anything, we would be completely different people. And
100%.
I guess what's waiting for us on the other side is so valuable, so worthy. It's exactly why everything in our path is as it is today, and it has been in the past, and whatever is going to come in the future anyway.
100%. Yeah. I feel like it's almost a blessing, you know. I think it's something that has continued to give me this drive, and I think that's what's got me to my success is, you know, always having these challenging times. And to be honest, like, there's a part of me that loves it. Like, I thrive off it, and it's probably like the challenge or the role that I play in life is almost like, fuck, the world's against me, but, you know, I'm gonna prove them wrong. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but that's the role, and that's how I choose to sort of take it. And you know, related to other people in my life and other people I know, like, I think that's one of the things that they say, and I feel just separates me from them and from them, is just the fact that, you know, I'm always in some difficult time. Like, I just know how to find myself in it, and I like to fight through, man. You know, so yeah.
I got two that I just need to ask. I got one.
Yeah.
So we spoke a little bit about this at the start, that obviously you've been working a bit with Tim and the guys down at Creative Breathflow, and obviously because you have that self introspection where you want to look and you want to reflect. How did you find it? How many sessions have you done so far?
I've done some breathing stuff before, but we only started with one session for Tim starting off, and then we just practiced the method. I love it. I love that sort of stuff. Like, I've seen some of the videos from the breath work where people just like break down and cry, and they just let out all this emotion and this trauma. And I think that there's a huge part of me that probably holds a lot of that just due to my life. And I've realized that, you know, those sort of reflecting, that sort of self-help is so good, because it sort of like heals your soul. Like, I wasn't always this sort of gentle, you know, human being and, you know, well-spoken, calm. Like, I was a very aggressive child growing up. So breathwork is something that I feel like it allows me to connect with myself. It allows me to know myself on this like deeper level that no one else will understand. And always at the end of it, I always catch myself tearing up a little bit. I haven't broke out into a full cry. Maybe there's a part of me that's fully holding on. But I think it's extremely beneficial for anyone to do. I mean, like, but you've got to be open to it. Do you know what I mean? You
Yeah.
can't have this clones off mindset, you know? So anything like that, like I'm open. I sort of live by this sort of motto, like if a large majority of like society is doing it, it's probably not going to be extremely beneficial. So I sort of like these off path little journeys and habits and things to do, man. And like it helps.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You couldn't have said it better. It's just that you really have to, because people will have sort of like a macho approach to it where like, breath work, yoga, like it's not going to do much. But especially for men, I'm finding it more and more as well. With these sorts of experiences, no matter how you do it, I think this the most natural and sober approach. I know people like to delve into psychedelics, which is fine, but I think that the most natural you can do it and the most open and vulnerable and just to yourself, like maybe just sort of seclude yourself and just try it, just maybe a one-on-one sort of session and see how you go, because I can almost guarantee that 9 out of 10 men especially are going to really, they're going to be surprised, because I mean, with this whole culture that we've been brought up, and I guess it's getting better now, but it's just for too long we try and hold on to things and put this front on. But, and you really think about it, you're much, much stronger having gone through it and facing yourself like that, because it's not an easy thing to do.
100%. Couldn't agree more.
And
like
lastly, just quickly as well, I just have to ask about it. Like, you've got this alien tattoo. I just have to know, what are your thoughts on aliens?
So this is a weird one, yeah. So I was born in Singapore. So I was born in Singapore. My mum's Singaporean, my dad's German. I was born in Singapore, came to Australia when I was 2. My family in Singapore are like Singaporean Malay, and they're Muslim, right? So they pray like 6 times a day. But when I came to Australia, I was actually raised in a Greek family. So my younger brother and sister were the same mum, different father, but like we're brother and sister, you know, none of that half nonsense. And my best friend was Christian. So like growing up at the time when we used to hang out, we went to like Christian school, you know, you got Greek Orthodox Easter, then you've got my family back home that are Muslim, and everybody was preaching, you know, this one thing. And like, it was conflicting, man. Like, it wasn't coming from the same source. There's this sort of God and there's this and this. And I was like, there's got to be more out there. And yeah, man, just as a kid. And I remember watching the movie Paul by Seth Rogen. I'm like 18, you know, probably acting up a little bit, going through the conspiracy theories. And I was like, that's 100% right. So that's Paul, Seth Rogen on my arm. And I've just been fascinated with the universe. Like, there's so much more out there, man. And, you know, like I'd love to meet one day, whether they're out there or not, but I'm just like a strong believer, like we can't be the only people on this planet. You know, and the same thing that goes to religion as well. Like, I think it has a place for everybody, and so long as what you're doing is coming from a loving spot, you know, doesn't mean either are wrong or right, you know. So we're all allowed to have our own beliefs.
100%.
Exactly. And you mentioned, like, the universe is, I guess, like a little obsession of ours, just in terms of the expansiveness of it. It's like, just everything about it is ridiculous, and there's so much that's unknown. Like, for example, myself, just when I'm in the water, I hop in the water a fair bit, and I always look straight out ahead at the horizon, and I think to myself, and sometimes I've done it, I'm like, if I could swim, you know, for an hour, and I would not know. It would be like I'm on a treadmill. I wouldn't know if I've made a dent in this bloody thing. And then you look at, that's just Earth and a small part of Earth, let alone the globe. Just thinking about the universe in general is just so crazy. And it's like, it definitely makes you think about certain things, like what else is out there, and then it leads to other thoughts about, you know, just interesting thoughts, interesting rabbit holes to go down.
There's a good like TV series. Have you guys heard of Gaia?
Yeah.
GAIA. Yeah. So I've just recently actually jumped on, paid a subscription to watch everything, you know, universe, UFO, extraterrestrial, spirituality, all those things, man. Just to be able to connect on something different. There's not much going on in the world, so why not learn? And I think it's actually really good. It's just different stuff. you know, most of us, we don't have to believe. I think there's certain things that I believe on there. There's certain stuff that you don't, but you never know. And as you said, man, it's just cool, man. Just culturally, just to be interested in other things, you know, and not go about life learning the same shit and the same small talk. I think it's really important for me, like when connecting with people, like I almost need like that intimacy level for the mind. You know what I mean? And these, some of the conversations definitely get me there. None of that small talk nonsense, what's going on Netflix shit, you know?
Oh, I can't put up with it. Like those, look, and what I've also realized is that certain people you can have certain conversations with, but I also know what type of conversations I enjoy and what type of conversations I don't enjoy. So when I can't be bothered for a conversation, it's very hard for me to even act like I want to be there. It's very hard for me to even act like I want to be there. And it's also an individual thing, it's a personality thing. Some people just appreciate those type of conversations more. But Guide is a very interesting app. I came across it as well. I saw I just got completely sucked into their marketing. Not that it was very persuasive. It just came across my screen and I was like, yeah, let me check this out. Okay, there's some interesting stuff on here. Let me browse it for a little while. And it's interesting that you do the same, because it's not surprising after having spoken to you even just a little while. The concept of radical open-mindedness, which Josh and I always remind ourselves about to employ, is very important to me in my development and to Josh in his development, because we know what it's given us this far. And that's why I never refuse any other source of information. If it's out there, I will expose myself to it and I'll see what it's about and I'll come to my own conclusions. It's massive. And think about the amount of gems that are available to you, that if you close your mind off behind a certain net, you might miss out on many, many things. You'd rather cast a wider net, see what's out there, and then create your own. It's like, I said this to a mutual friend of ours, Bobby. I said, it's like you're painting your own picture, you know, in life. You're painting your own, you've got your canvas and you've got what's given to you, and you can finish the game with the same picture, or you at some point can decide to go out there and just paint your own picture by going out and seeing what's out there, get a color of this and that, and just splash it on, and there you go, you get your painting.
100%.
Cool. The last thing I'll throw out here from me is just a bit of a curveball. So you said you like UFC, you like, you know, you follow it.
Yeah.
First of all, what's your weight, if you wouldn't mind me asking? This leads on to this.
I'm 87 kilos.
So you probably fight at middleweight, Josh?
Yeah, I'd cut down to middleweight.
Yeah, but you could cut down probably to maybe.
Oh, you wouldn't want it.
That's another tricky one for cutting weight. But you could cut a fair bit, maybe welterweight. Imagine that. That'd be pretty big welterweight. But if you could fight, if you had to fight anyone in the UFC,
if I had to fight,
who would you pick? And it's a weird one depending on what you even think about fighting. But is there a match there that you'd be like, okay, if I had the skills and the ability and everything right here, who would I think would be such a fun fight?
I don't know. I'd probably say I'd fight some form of striker. I would say I can't wrestle, but I grew up playing, you know, AFL and rugby. So I reckon I could pin a bloke. I want to say, who would it be? I don't know. Someone like lanky, like, it's hard to say because he doesn't really get taken down, does he? I would probably say, like, but he's not even in the middleweight division. But I'd say someone like I like it. Anyone. I don't know, someone lanky like a Max Holloway or, you know, someone like that. I don't know. Just
that's smart. That's smart thinking. The way your thought process went there, you know. Like, of course, there's not. Yeah.
I'd eat a couple and I'll just I'll show him my chin and then that's it.
Give one.
Level change and then I'd Khabib him, I reckon.
Do you reckon you would ever train martial arts, train MMA or boxing or jiu-jitsu?
I recently started boxing actually. So like this morning before my PT, I did some boxing one-on-one with one of my trainers. So like we talk about environment. One of my friends, Nathan, that I worked with at Good Life, now works with me as one of my employees. And he started doing some amateur fights and then boxing with the guys. If you guys heard of Tribute Boxing?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the boys down there.
Yeah, so like
Solid people.
for like I can't box or anything like that, but more so for fitness. But I've had the goal to potentially do one of those, pretender to contender sort of
Oh,
things,
yeah.
just to feel what it's like out there, and just being around Nathan and all the guys at Tribute, and like we've got a few of the members from Tribute to come to do the weight-based stuff at Uplift. So I just sort of fell into it, man. Like I've always just loved UFC. To one of my mum's previous partners was a professional or a semi-professional Thai boxer. So like I've always been involved around fighters and like, shadow boxing and been sparring with blokes, but never properly until now, like spent the time to sort of learn technique. So I'm a huge fan of mixed martial arts. I actually stay more up to date with probably MMA than I do AFL. Now I don't know, it's just one of those sports that if you watch a sick fight and you're like emotionally involved, it's like the highs like one of the best fights, the Dan Hooker Poirier fight. Now I was sitting there and I'm dipping and weaving, standing up. My missus was like, what the fuck are you doing? And I was just like, I wanted Dan to win, but if I had to bet, it was on Poirier. But yeah, so man, I love martial arts.
In saying that as well, I've only I don't know what it is, but I don't know, maybe it's just this year and the circumstances, but how you just said that you've always liked it, but you've never thought you've never thought to do it or try it, and only just sort of this year, I've only sort of realized, like to be a bit personal, I'll say it. So like you can learn anything. You know what I mean? You can learn absolutely anything if you're willing to try. I'm like, we have that quote, Sam, that anything is possible to him if you try. And it's like, I think about all my resources in terms of network, money, whatever I have available to me. And it's like, if I want something, I can have it just because I want it, because I can try it and I can do these things. Like if you want to learn to box, it's pretty easy to get a coach and you can learn one-on-one. If you want to learn a language, plenty of sites, and like, Sam hooked me up with a good language site, and I've been doing that. Yeah, Pimsleur. And that's actually really helpful. And I've been doing that. And like, if you want to learn to invest, then get a bit of money aside and start investing. Like we've been having a shot at the stock market and it's been all right. And it's like, you can do literally anything you want just because you can try it. And like, this is actually something I've been sort of stepping up. So I've been doing language. I feel comfortable with it. I like it. I enjoy it. And then I've also been trying to play the guitar, and like, I don't know what it is, but I just can't. I just get insanely mad at myself because my fingers just won't do it. Like what? Yeah, okay. And this is my question. So when you start learning something new, how do you get over that? Maybe it's just results driven, and you really want to get it, and you care so much, but when you just can't budge, you just can't get it. What's something to get past that little learning curve?
This might be like just a different perspective. Like sometimes I think, like, yes, you're right. We have the resources to learn anything that we want. But sometimes I think in a certain aspect, like you've almost got to still stay in your lane a little bit. Like there's things that you can get good at, but you may not get great at. If that sort of makes sense. Like we're all built for different body types. Like I'm very street smart and business savvy, but I'm very unorganized. And that's where sort of Chelsea comes in, for example. But I'm very athletic. So you could give me any sport, give me a couple months, I'll get good at it. But, it's like learning to sing, right? I could probably practice as much as I want and get a little bit better, but I might not get good at that. Or I've never had the hand-eye coordination ever to get a nice beat on the drum kit. So like to sort of like answer, I think 100% you can do whatever you choose to, but I think at some point you may not be able to do everything that you want. It doesn't mean you can't continue to try. But I think at some point, like you've got to also ask yourself, at what point are you willing to slowly progress or not progress at all, trying to learn something. I hope that doesn't throw you off. That's just, I guess, my mindset sort of towards it,
No, that doesn't make sense.
I'm glad you prefaced it with, I'm glad you ended it with that point about you can do anything you want. It's about at some point choosing, because there's a great audiobook I recommend you both. It's called The Science of Accelerated Learning. there's a little bit of fluff in there, but overall it's a compilation, really well put together, 3.5-hour audiobook on learning and learning techniques. And I thought to myself, I was like, okay, if I'm in this phase of learning, I'm going to listen to this audiobook and pick up some of those skills. And it mentions the same thing. There's a lot of great things in there that you both guarantee you'll both be like, damn, it's pretty spot on. But at the end, there's a chapter, I forgot the title of it, but they talk about this, about selecting in which area you want to become, or you want to achieve mastery, or you want to aspire towards mastery. Because there's the classic image of energy being distributed in so many different areas and only going this far maybe. But energy being distributed only 1 or 2 areas and going all the way. And I realized that a lot this year. I was talking to Josh about this, about myself always getting onto whatever I want to learn, I do not hold myself back from. And whatever I want to experience, I don't hold myself back from that either. But I realized that, or where I fell was, I had to identify what are the main things, and then I had to figure out in what capacity can I do these things. And what I found was things like language learning, especially I found the Pimsleur app, which was pretty spot on and pretty straightforward and effective. Okay, it's 30 minutes a day. I can put that at the start of my day because I'm up early, and that takes care of that side of things. Other things like drawing and whatnot, I said, okay, maybe I don't have to draw because I want to do things the best at everything. I'm always not out of anything other than just how I am. I'm like, okay, I don't have to draw 4 days a week and do a course. No, I can draw once a week on the weekend. When I got my Sunday, I can try and give myself a bit of time there. And then during the week, when I got my main areas, it's like, all right, there's the podcast, the other businesses that Josh and I are involved in, content creation. And then I know that I'm at training once a day at the moment. And there you go. You have those things there. The main things are consistent, and there are many of them. So in a week, I'll train 6 times and I'll draw once. So it kind of shows you the perspective of how overall, especially when you zoom out of your personal timeline, you look at, okay, if I draw once a week now, 50 weeks from now, I'll have had 50 sessions. And that's fine because there's no rush to become a great artist. Yeah. However, I need to become a world champion. So the training needs to be there constant, business, we need those aspects as well. So there needs to be more attention in those areas. So yeah, that's just my thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best way to answer that question. You have to it sucks because it's really a blessing and a curse when you're so ambitious towards things, because then, you can rattle your brain all day. But yeah, I think that's probably the best answer. Like, pick what you want to be good at as quickly as you can, and put as much time into that. And then, those things, just try and leave them as a hobby. And like, I feel the same. I'm not going to be the best singer or guitar player, but I want to be good. Like, I'm just so.
But you can get them. You will. And
yeah,
also,
for sure. Right, just over a longer time. Yeah.
Like, all 3 of us are in that game. Like, where we're in the middle of our lives right now. Creating and doing certain things. When we're at certain other stages, we'll also have more time to allocate to certain other pursuits and whatnot.
Sure.
100%, and more time to put energy into those things.
Yeah.
As I said, it's like, it's not that you might not get good, but you're not putting the time in. You know what I mean? So like, you might naturally be better at, I don't know, let's just say learning, but then all of a sudden that hand-eye coordination is going to take a little bit more effort that you have to do, but it's the same with anything. Like, sometimes, like, we also, to a certain extent, have to be real with ourselves. And I think a lot of us already know what we're extremely good at and almost push in that direction. Like, not everybody's going to be a Usain Bolt and a world-class sprinter. Like, we can look at it in the UFC. Like, there's so many people that make it, but they don't even make the top 15. But they put everything they want into it. Do you know what I mean? They put everything, they've put time, and genetically they just might not have it. They might not have, whether it's the mindset, or they might have all the other pieces and put the exact same, if not more work than certain people. And then all of a sudden you look at, for example, Paulo Costa got chewed apart by Israel Adesanya, and everybody says his work ethic is, skyrocketed. So I think you can do whatever you choose in this world. You've just got to be willing to, at some point, be real and go, are you happy with the rate that you're either developing? Are you willing to put more time into it, or are you not, and pursue things that, you know, that you're going to be able to propel you forward at that craft or whatever it might be as well.
Are there any, this one's out of the blue, are there any topics or passions or anything you have an interest in that are kind of unique in the sense that they're not that common, like any areas of interest? Like we know our coach is pretty obsessed with ancient civilizations and things like that. Is there anything like that, not in that niche, but anything unique, any of those kind of topics?
Well, I guess I wouldn't say anything too over the top. I guess I love psychology, but just understanding the reasoning behind why people are the way they are or some of their actions. So I guess like a lot of, you know, my growth is all based on myself and understanding who I truly am. So no, I don't like ancient understanding, but I guess sometimes I analyze other people in a sense, and you start to see what their traits and their habits are and their language and why they do certain things. And I feel like once you have a level of that understanding, it almost helps you level up to understand, I guess, how to communicate with these people or how you need to act a certain way or how you can develop in your life. So I love psychology. I just love understanding people, but most importantly, love understanding myself, you know?
How do you go? Well, firstly, have you read the book, or listened to the book, The Laws of Human Nature? And secondly,
I have.
How good is that book?
I think it's amazing, man. It's so I think I was audio booking it every time I was driving to work, and sometimes while I train, and I'd have to go over it again. I can't remember how many chapters. I know, but
big book.
It was a really good book just to, I guess, understand some psychology on why people do what they do or how to communicate or how, like, I think some people at times, they think that can sometimes be manipulative. But I think when you understand these things and you learn to do it from a mutually beneficial place, it can be extremely beneficial for both people. You know, there can be always two really good outcomes from it. So psychology is awesome.
Yeah, 100%. And it's almost, someone said to me the other day, and this is exactly on the same sort of thing, that especially with your partner. So if you don't understand each other's love language, then you're going to cause a lot of unnecessary friction and possibly conflict as well. But if you understand, you know, the way that people work, you can work out like, okay, obviously my partner loves me, but maybe I don't need as much attention, or the way that I say I love you is a little bit different. Maybe it's not so over the top. Maybe it's these small gestures. And if you can start to understand that as just a basic sort of thing, then it's going to be a lot easier to get along with your partner, you know what I mean? Which we want less conflict, you know?
100%. Make both people's life easier.
Exactly.
I fully agree that communication, that level of understanding, it makes it not just that, every relationship, man. Like, even if you can speak to your mates almost on their love language, but, you know, not on an intimate level, you know, you just know how to, you know, what sort of ticks them off and what doesn't. And, you know, I think whenever I sort of like interview, you know, new staff or new people that are potentially, like, one of the questions is like understanding how they're going to take on feedback. And I think when you can answer that and understand, like, you can find out how to get the best out of someone. Yeah. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So I know, like, for myself as well, you know, when you talk about communication, like, I love upfront and honest, no bullshit. And like, when you get that, you get the best version of me. While if you get someone that sort of fluffs me up, you know, and they might not even know, that's just them. They're intentionally like, you know, sugarcoat some shit. You instantly put myself, you know, on the back foot. So I think it's a real powerful question asking, like, how do you respond to feedback? And one of those sort of, that answer can just open up a really good positive way on how to drive a conversation and make sure it's beneficial for both people.
100%. I completely agree. Oh, he's back. What happened? Yeah, you're in.
Bang. Back, boys.
All right, beautiful. I reckon that's perfect. That's exactly what we want to hear. And it was exactly what I was sort of expecting by having you on. I was expecting this sort of stuff. Like, even just a very brief and quick look, you can sort of see a lot. I think about that a lot. I think about the psychology of people and how it's pretty crazy that even just looking at, I don't know, what are your thoughts on this? Maybe maybe it's just me, but I feel like sometimes you can look at someone's facial structure enough to sort of understand already a baseline, and I'm not talking about judging a book by its cover, but I'm talking about, you can almost, for example, you can almost see someone's ego by looking just at their face. And some people just have it. You're like, man, I bet I can already tell the sort of mannerisms this person's going to have. And 9 times out of 10, I've probably guessed it right. Do you think that that's a thing?
I think, yeah, I think that definitely comes. But I feel like you probably can just sense someone's energy, man. I think we're so energetic.
People give off a vibe.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I know that there's times when, I can be arrogant, I can be egotistical, and there's that look in my face. But, but I think energetically, like, the way someone walks, the way they talk, the way somebody stands, like they're all layers to how you can, understand how someone's going to sort of be. And
well, it's all communication. It's just non-verbals, They're saying
also just that vibe. For me, definitely there's a vibe. And I've said it to Josh heaps. It's like when I meet someone, and I'm sure that you boys are the same. So you meet someone and sometimes you don't sense anything, but sometimes, I'll get on with this person, and it's it's not very long. It's like, yeah. Even remember that time there was some comics, me and Josh went and saw a comedy show, just a real underground one. And just some of the comics that went up, I'd be like, even before they even opened their mouth, I'm like, I like this guy,
Yeah.
And to you, I'm also seeing this now just through Zoom. You can also get the same thing. You can be like, yeah, I rate this guy. I like this guy. Like, I can get on. But also and I kind of get the feeling you both understand what I'm saying here. Also a little bit deeper than that. You can also just feel the vibe and when you know.
Yeah. As you said, it's like there's an energy that you let off. There's like a connection where you just like, I feel, I don't know how to be like vibrationally, is that even a word? That like you're in sync with someone. And I think that's like extremely important when it comes to just like any relationship or any stress. But I also believe at any one time that vibration, there can be disconnect due to circumstance, due to how you're feeling, you know what I mean? And when and you can see that and you can feel that, and so long as you're both okay to be vulnerable, like you can almost like reconnect. Always like relate it as well, like back to relationships, like me and Chelsea are rock solid. But there's times like there's holes, in the armor, and she's not feeling something or I'm not feeling something, and it's all about communication. And a day or so comes back after an argument, and it's like you're back on again. That trust, that connection, that energy is back on. And I always say that like with my friends as well. Like there's moments when everybody's on together, everyone's doing well in life, and then one person might have a hiccup or an issue, and vibrationally they're not aligned. They just don't feel they're of value. They don't feel they're connected. They feel distant. So I think that's why I like to use the word energetically, because I feel like on that deeper surface, there's a level of energy that we all let out, you know.
You got to learn to trust that energy too as well, because then you can you're more in sync with it. Yeah.
Well, that's the other thing. It's not always consistent. And I don't know if that's maybe just if it's humans, because if you're talking about like gamma rays and X-rays and all that, it's always sort of the thing. Like a microwave always lets out microwaves, you know what I mean? But for whatever reason, humans just have this almost unique ability to have different ones at different times, and usually depends on your mood, I guess, which is...
It's just different things, like different circumstances affect. Like I can feel when I'm in a certain space or whatnot, I can just kind of sense it. I guess the more you're in tune with yourself. But I think animals too. Animals also have a good sense for that.
Yeah. And you're like, when you like walk into a space as well, sometimes it doesn't even have to be related to someone. You can just walk in something and something's just not right. Like energetically, you're like, fuck man, like what's going on here? Or it might be, you're walking down the street late at night, and a street that you're normally super safe, it's like the hairs in your back sort of race, you know what I mean? So
there's other instincts we have, there's other instincts, and we can I feel like the world we live in, not in any bad way, because there's so many blessings in this age, but the world we live in kind of shuts us off from some of our more innate senses, but I really try and get in touch with them whenever I can, as best I can, and it seems to help. Big time.
I agree.
Yeah, sometimes less is more, I guess. I think I'm seeing that more. Just less of everything that's extra. You know what I mean? I don't need this and that. I just want it just to be, just let me do my thing and just let me stay on my path. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway, that was great. It was great to talk to you. I'm really stoked that we got to do this.
Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate being on here, man. It's good to speak with like-minded people when I haven't had much connection over the last, couple months.
Yeah. I'm glad. I'm real glad. And we'll definitely, mate, when this is all over, we'll link up, we'll go for coffee, we'll train together, we'll run you through some hands.
Sounds good, man. Look forward to it. Thanks again, boys. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks heaps for that, mate.
And just before we jump off, I'm going to cut recording anyway, but just let us know so we've got your email, you've got ours. Just let us know any links, and if you could send through a photo of the Uplift Training logo. So I'll just chuck it. I'll just chuck it on here, so that on the recordings, and either headshot of yourself or like a background shot of you at Uplift Training. So I'll just use those for the thumbnails.
Any photo you'd want us to use for for marketing, putting the podcast out.
Sounds good. I'll send you an email of just basically just the Instagram and website, and I'll send you the photos, and we can go from there, mate. I'll promote you boys. I'm pumped to get you out there. Love what you're about. I think you got a lot of value to give a lot of people, especially like us, when we're probably all in the same boat, looking for just other like-minded people to connect with. So, mate, you've got my support 100%.
That means heaps. Thanks, mate. Thank you.
All right, boys. Thanks again.
Take care.
Chat soon.